feet in magnesium flakes. She's been advised it's simply marvellous for getting to sleep. She's accompanying it with some yoga breathing for deep relaxation, so she's been told.
You haven't returned my calls, any of them. You're obviously very angry still. Still, just to talk. Please call me. Please call me. It's a long time ago. I know, and I'm terribly sorry. I really am. Bill Fletcher's in no state to sleep. He's leaving messages on various phones. It's like history repeating itself. I mean, there's no personal involvement as there was with Sophie. Fucking hell, fucking stupid. It's twice now. Twice! Savoy, now here. Do I still have a number for Pavel? He needs a pee. Oh, come on. Oh, come on. Come on.
Terry gets out the bloody ironing board. She gets the iron, she unravels the flax, she jams the plug in. Right, is there anything else she needs to get? The spray bottle?
Hugo Doyle is trying to decide between alcohol and pills. I was with a drink or two or three would have seen me through the night, but I can't even think of it now without Kathleen popping up and shaking her head. Her father, she says. I'm going to have to watch myself too, given my family history. My Maggie would have given me a wry smile. I mean, is that weird? Or just normal? To have both of them in my head right now. Ah!
Harvey Cartwright has this recurring nightmare. A hand is pushing his head underwater. He comes up gasping, sees the twilight and knows this will be his last breath. It brings his impending mortality into sharp focus. It might push him to get on with the book, or he might be too shaken, too crazy to do anything, or too shaken to sleep again just yet, so he might as well start packing. Tomorrow, he's decided to go in search of his daughter again. Ran into someone in the pub who knew someone who thought they knew where she might be, but heard she'd changed her name. In Liverpool, she might be. But if she doesn't want further contact, perhaps
Well, small drop must be healthier than a bunch of chemicals. Towards the end, though, with my poor Maggie, we couldn't have survived without the little white pills. I drank far too much in my youth. No, that's an easy route for me. I've been sleeping better, though, since Kathleen moved in. Well, we've hardly slept apart since then. Maybe that's the problem. Her being away on this training course. He picks up the phone to call her, puts it down again.
The spray bottle? Oh, well, she'll watch something. No, she won't. The other night she fell asleep on the sofa watching Emmerdale because she'd been up most of the night. That's where she sleeps, on the sofa. Right, I'll start with a pillowcase because they're easiest. Oh, I don't do this much ironing at home. I never do duvet covers. I only iron here because Mother wouldn't sleep otherwise. And then there's the health visitors and the priests coming to give communion at weekends. Oh, I'm fed up to the back teeth of this. I don't spend any time in my own house anymore. Terry comes straight here from work at the call centre of an insurance company. It's been like this with her mother for the past 10 years. She listens to her mother breathing on the baby monitor. I don't know how much longer this is going to go on. She had a chest infection, a problem with the waterworks, and they took her into hospital, and I thought that would be it. But here she is, back again. And I have to be here most nights. Someone has to. Well, she could fall out of bed. She could have a choking fit and I couldn't live with myself. It's all right in the day. A neighbour comes over, someone from the church.
Bill was an actor briefly. He did drama at Sussex University, but he wasn't particularly driven and the drama sort of petered out. So, graduated with a very poor degree and wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, go into the business or what. Did a lot of travelling, the hippie trail, Machu Picchu, India. Anyway, long story. Eventually came back and started to pick up the traces of, mooched about. Picked up small parts in theatre, very small parts. ASM and stuff. And occasionally got bits in Z-Cars, Crown Court, things like that, but wasn't making any money. He then gets a job at the Northcote in Exeter, acting stage manager for a season. And down there, he gets very friendly with the stage manager, Mandy, and they become an item. And when their contracts finish, they get a flat together in London. Mandy gets a regular job with a theatrical agency. Meanwhile, Bill's scrabbling around, picking up pretty menial stuff to supplement the domestic income. Don't think I was motivated enough. You've got to really love it.
Harvey's hitting 70. Living in a one-room flat in Stroud Green, life hasn't really turned out quite the way he'd planned. I don't suppose it does for anybody, really. Though being a person of some political engagement, I've always had strong ideas about how the world could be made a better place. He was a teacher, history and English in state secondary schools, and became very disillusioned with the way the system got so exam-orientated and came up against the educational mafia. I was, fairly left-wing, teaching a somewhat Marxist version of history, had a strong sense of purpose. I tried to give some extra attention to kids from more disadvantaged backgrounds. My personal life, I don't seem to have been able to work that out properly. They sort of come round and hit me in the back. My daughter Gina, I think she's getting on for 40 now. I haven't seen her for 2 or 3 years more. It's not the way I wanted things at all. I love the girl to bits really, but I had a very complicated relationship with her mother, which backfired badly. She's sort of indoctrinated the girl, well, warped her actually. I tried to explain this thing about her mother and she stared at me as though I was trying to poison her mind and just walked out. I haven't seen her since. She's gone into social work, not the ideal choice for her. Heard she might be pregnant and that kicked it all up again. Then I thought I was going to see her in Manchester some time ago, but that didn't work out either. And really, now I just don't know what to do, really. Try again, I suppose, but...
Helen lives in an immaculate house in Hammersmith. She's rather dreading the dinner party she's got to host tomorrow night. This is because work colleagues are coming to see a film about my latest project. I'm feeling rather cross, actually. Well, a little bit put upon. Normally, I keep my work life and my home life separate, but all these people trampling over my lovely garden. And all these work colleagues came to me and said, "Oh, Helen, you've got such a lovely house and such a lovely garden. Why don't we have the film here?" So I've been sort of bludgeoned into doing it. I'll have no control over the way it finishes and stops. I can't say, "Oh, goodness, look at the time. Hasn't it gone fast?" And I know what's going to happen. These people, they count themselves as friends now, and they always have handy hints on how I could improve my life. I made the mistake of telling one of them that I was having sleep problems. So now I'm going to have to say, "Oh, visualization. Oh, that sounds like a really interesting idea. Thank you so much. Oh, what's this thing called? Reiki? Oh, I must try that. Thank you." And then they'll say, Oh, Helen, what you really need is someone to share your life with. I know this really lovely man. He's very high up in John Lewis. He's just got divorced. I think you'd really get on. And I want to say to them, oh, I've had quite a lot of sex in my life, really. Quite a lot of sex at university, sex with people I can't even remember. And a lot of these Windsor Trust work colleagues, well, they live in rented accommodation. So I shall have to say I had to get an enormous mortgage and I had to do all of it myself. You should have seen the state it was in. And I really do live in a rather lovely house. And I'm so pleased with where my new garden goes straight out. And it's this kitchen, it's a new kitchen that goes straight out into the garden. But thereby hangs a rather sad tale.
The alcohol is not having the desired effect. So Hugo goes into his studio and begins to work on a new batch of clay, kneading it and rolling it. And he's remembering a conversation he was having with his pal Jim. They meet up in town once a week for a pint or two at the Curragower. And he's probing me about how things are going with Kathleen. So I share my little anxiety with him. Kathleen and I haven't been getting on so well in the love department. Her job's been getting her down. So often she isn't in the mood, but there was an incident a little while ago when she came back from a girls' night out and she very much was in the mood. And I'd been at home tucking into the wine, so when it came to it, I'd rather let her down. And that hadn't happened before, so he's sharing these rather troubling thoughts with Jim, when Jim said, Jesus, Hugo, that's not a problem at all. I've had the same issue. I'm a diabetic, so I get these free. Have some, on the health service. And he thrust this little packet at me from this massive supply of his. Give it a go, he said. Now, I was rather surprised that Jim happened to have a box of Viagra on him, but I haven't had an opportunity to test them since. There was a couple of occasions when I popped the pack ready to go, but it wasn't going to happen that night. So this is milling round in his head as he rolls out his coils of clay. I'm going to have to get a supply of my own, but I hate going into that surgery. Every time I have to fill out these frickin' forms and explain how many units of alcohol I'm drinking and will I give up the fags and so on. Still, that's one little problem solved. We hope. She's a terrific lady. He's been living with Kathleen for about 18 months. He finds it kind of flattering to be with an attractive younger woman, though he's not so keen on her sometimes calling him Dad. She had a falling out with her own dad and moved here from the UK. She's a social worker and finding it really stressful. So he suggested that she take a bit of time out, that they go on this road trip he's been dreaming about for years, sweep down the south of France, back via the Balkans maybe. She loves the idea. Brilliant! Keeps nagging me to get on with it. So why don't I? Get the maps out, surprise him. There's only one problem though. Kathleen doesn't drive. Locally, it's fine for the moment. I can drive her into work. It's about 15 miles. She keeps talking about learning to drive, but I'm not convinced. She's too jittery. Why'd she leave me? Well, the last thing I want is for her to become my carer. I know about caring, but no, it won't come to that.
I got nappies for her. She won't wear the bloody things. Oh, no, no, no. But who has to clear up after her? Oh, I'm sick and bloody tired of this fucking ironing. How many pillowcases can you iron in one lifetime? Oh, some jeans. Something of mine for a change. My mother never wore trousers in her life. wasn't ladylike. Even when once my dad took her walking in the Lake District. Got herself a very posh pair of walking boots though, and a tartan skirt from the Edinburgh woolen shop. But she got it too tight, so when it got to a style, she couldn't manage it, could she? No, Dad was forever hauling her over. His poor back. I think she's still got those boots. It's probably the only time she ever wore them. Dad wanted his ashes to be scattered in Grasmere because he absolutely loved it up there. But when Zoe died, he wanted to be near her. Her ashes are under a rose bush in my garden. Oh, I don't know what I'll do if I ever move. Dad died, what? Oh, 16 years ago. Oh, I miss him. I really miss my dad. I had an infection when I was born, and he took time off from Wallasey Post Office. He was the one who looked after me. Mother had what we now call postnatal depression. Oh, she was all right, she was fine, but she was always uncommitted. Not quite there. I think she was jealous, really, of me and Dad. We had a fantastic relationship. I think he loved being a dad. He certainly loved being a granddad, didn't he, Zoe? When you came along, he loved it. Oh, he was a great gardener. He showed you everything. And you'd stand next to him, Zoe, do you remember? You'd wander around with your wheelbarrow and your wellies. He loved you. You loved him, didn't you?
When I first moved into this house, there was a sitting tenant in the basement, a really sweet woman called Joyce. And I often used to help her with her shopping down the steps, and I really did do an awful lot to help her out. And then one day I remember I hadn't seen her for a while, so I knocked on her door, but there was no answer. And then sometime later I was coming back from a business trip, that's right, to Cornwall, and it was discovered that she'd been found dead. She'd been dead for several days, apparently. Well, I mean, she was quite old and had a lot of things wrong with her, but, well, it was terribly sad, and I felt really bad about it. But those poky little rooms down there have made a really beautiful kitchen, and it leads straight out into the garden where I'm having this dinner party tonight. Oh, God. It's going to be a very long evening, and I'm not going to have any control over when it stops. It is not an evening I am looking forward to.
Meantime, Mandy's rising fast in the agency while I'm still scrabbling around to earn a crust. Then through a mate of mine from Sussex, this landlord of quite a nice gourmet pub in Shoreditch offered me some work as a kitchen porter and then as a commie chef. I really enjoyed cooking and I thought, maybe there's a future for me here. Bill works there for some while, and then through Pavel, one of the chaps in Shoreditch, he becomes a sous chef at L'Église in Shepherd Market. More challenging, more sophisticated menus, and he's there for about 3 years. It's a small world, the chef's world, small. So again, through another contact, Claudio, there's an opening at the Savoy. He has to drop right back to the beginning, but he thinks the opportunity's worth it. I'm a kitchen porter again. Long hours, working hard, and the pace is terrific. In a place like the Savoy, the pressure's intense. The food obviously has to be first class, and I enjoyed it there. I enjoyed it very much. It's terrific. But I'm finishing late, cleaning, clearing, cleaning, clearing, because you can't waste time the following day, and so invariably you have a few drinks with your mates just to wind down, because you do get very, there are tensions, oh, there are tensions. So by the time I get home, Mandy's fast asleep. By the time I wake up, Mandy's gone. We're like ships in the night. It was a very strange existence for both of us, really. Well, for me, I felt lonely. Bill is good at what he does. He learns fast and gradually gets through several promotions until he's a sous chef again. And then this young woman is recruited to the Savoy, Sophie, and I'm entrusted to kind of watch her back, be her mentor, sort of, and we start to get friendly. Just friendly, really. She's bright, and as well as the culinary work, in our breaks we talk about poetry. She really loves poetry, so we get close. And now I'm having to think of different stories for Mandy. There's a supply problem or a staff crisis I have to stay over. And then Mandy finds some condoms in my pocket, and she wakes me up and says, "What's going on, Bill?" What is going on? She's furious. Absolutely devastated. She feels bitterly betrayed. She hit me a couple of times. I didn't retaliate. She told me to get out. So, Bill takes his few possessions and leaves the family home with his tail between his legs. Mandy won't talk to him. Doesn't know who this person is anymore. He knows it's all his fault. He knew what he was doing. He knows what he's done. But he still has a love for her. He wants to meet up again. There are one or two uneasy encounters, but
Breathe. Breathe. Don't look at the clock. Body scan. Do the body scan. Toes. Feet. Legs. Fingers. Hands. Arms. Harvey's been to a sleep clinic, but he doesn't have much faith in the efficacy of their procedures. Relax your shoulder. He has a theory about his sleeplessness, that he has a malfunctioning suprachiasmatic nucleus that is firing off all these hormones into his body and disrupting his normal circadian rhythms. So what he really needs is to get hold of some melatonin, but the doctors won't prescribe any. Your heartbeat is calm and regular. You wish, mate, you wish. Get up if you're still awake after 15 minutes. But if I can't look at the fucking clock, how am I supposed to work that out? Melatonin, for fuck's sake! Harvey gives up any attempt to sleep, but he hasn't given up on women. He's had a succession of different partners using dating apps, but he knows he's impossible to live with. What's this one? Part Rosa Luxemburg, part Nigella Lawson. Which part? Blue stocking, 63, 6. Oh, you again. One candlelit dinner you were happy for me to pay for. So much for feminism, Miss Blue Stocking. Ah. I'll be your Jeanne Moreau if you'll be my Jean-Paul Belmondo. Wacky raconteur, 65, seeks dark horse for champagne and Scrabble. I don't think I need wacky. I've done wacky. I met Gina's mum, Mairead. I was about 26, 27, I don't know. She was singing with a band called the Fiddlers of Dooney. They might have done very well if the Pogues hadn't got there first. She was amazing. Long, jet black hair and ultramarine eyes. They were playing somewhere around Kilburn. It was basically an IRA fundraiser, and they weren't making any bones about it. I'm no particular fan of the IRA. I mean, I sympathise with the struggle, but they carried on like gangsters, really. I mean, afterwards, at the bar, she asked me what I thought of the music. Mairead, she's dead now. she started talking to me about the struggle and stuff, and I don't know what the hell I said. I'd become a swarm of butterflies. I was completely... Oh. A year or two later, she's living with me. She was volatile. She'd go through these funny moods. And eventually, after various comings and goings and disappearing and coming back, she got pregnant, and my daughter Gina came along. And then she said, "Oh, you're my rock," and all this stuff. I never really felt like a rock. I mean, I had a steady job. I was doing all this political stuff. I don't know. I think she liked the idea that somehow I was going to make her steady. And, well, that was a job description I couldn't really fill. And then, well, Gina must have been 3 or 4. She suddenly took off, vanished. I didn't know where the fuck they'd gone. And after a few months, she's back. She makes out everything's okay, but I don't know. After that, it all went a bit funny. And then, well, I got a bit too close to the French teacher, and from then on it became really acrimonious. And with Gina, it was so painful, I couldn't bear it. When we finally separated, she asked me to take Gina. Well, I could have worked it out, but I thought she'd be better off with her mum. That was a terrible mistake. From then on, her mother didn't want her to have anything to do with me. And when her mother got ill over in Ireland 10 years ago, I tried to offer Gina some sort of support, and she said no. I think her mother had drawn her into this sort of death dance and very deliberately went to her grave without forgiving me for all the things I was supposed to have done, having failed her as a rock, been a shit man, an alcoholic, a toxic male. Anyway, I've still got my work to do. You can't let personal stuff sink you. There's a world out there and it's full of shit, and somebody's got to call out the facts. He's got this important project that literally gets him through the night. He's writing a book about what he sees as the downfall of liberal democracy in the UK, and the particular tipping point of this story takes place in Wapping.
The magnesium flakes have failed to live up to their reputation. So Helen is doing a 1,000-piece jigsaw on the Tour de France. The repetitive nature of a jigsaw is meant to be very relaxing for getting to sleep, but Helen finds it extremely frustrating. She hates being beaten, so she is persevering. A little piece of bicycle and a little piece of someone looking on as they go up Mont Blanc. Yes, it was a Saturday, and my school friend Debbie persuaded me to go shopping. So we go into Boots, and Debbie says to me, "Wait there, Helen, behind me," and very soon afterwards, right, off we go. She has a piece of road now, which is more difficult because they all look the same. Thinks it might go there. No, it doesn't. Then we go into Woolworths. Oh, yes, it does. And the very same thing happens. And Debbie says, "Stand there, Helen, and make yourself look as big as possible." And then we go into W.H. Smith's, and exactly the same thing happens, except that we are apprehended by the store detective, who sees that Debbie has rather a lot of things in her bag. Helen's on a run here. This man's head goes on this bicycle, and behind him is that man on that bicycle. There, that's gone in rather nicely. Oh, the humiliation of being in the manager's office in W.H. Smith. It was horrible. I felt quite mortified. They called the police. Debbie got a severe ticking off, but so did I. I was considered an accomplice. My parents were so angry, and they'd never been angry with me before. She wonders where this tiny little boy with an ice cream looking for his mother goes. For some reason, I went back to Debbie's. Thank goodness this was your first offence, otherwise things could have got a lot more serious, I said. Which it's not my first offence at all. Look there. And there, under the bed, was this enormous stash of mascara and body lotion and false eyelashes and eye makeup. Well, she must have been stealing for months. I felt really betrayed. It took a long time for my 12-year-old self to trust anybody after that. I had been used. Oh, look, little boy, back with his mother. What made me think of that? Maybe Debbie and I did jigsaws together. I hated Debbie.
What it was, I met this Colombian woman, Serafina, her name was, over in Amsterdam. I'd come over with a bunch of Irish artists. We'd had a joint exhibition, and at the last minute, I decided to stay on. And I was in this park, reading, when suddenly this voice goes, I love that book. I love that book. That's a great book. It was by Carlos Castaneda, The Teaching of Don Juan. I turned around, and there was this absolutely gorgeous girl, and she had this big smile and curly hair, and she was wearing this fabulous, flowing, colourful dress. And there she was, a gift from the gods. Anyway, we got into talking, and she was living in a communal house and working at a restaurant, and she played like this mandolin thing, a charango it's called. Anyway, we ended up going to this bar, and she jumped on a table and started to play, and she had a fabulous voice. And at the end of the song, she did this spin thing. She's gone round and round and round, and the dress started to rise, and oh, for fuck's sake, she's not wearing any. Oh my God! And she jumped off the table into my arms, and I thought, oh, this is brilliant. I stayed with her for a week, but then I had to get back, and I was thinking, I must hold on to this woman. So I was pleading with her to come over, and I was back doing a bit of teaching at the art school when I got the postcard. Arriving at Shannon Airport on such and such a day. Brilliant! We drove down to Kerry, and there's a beach there called Glen Bay, and she's like, I love the sea, I love the sea. And, oh my God, she starts pulling off her clothes and running into the water, stark naked, and I'm like, confused, like I'm thrilled, but at the same time I'm thinking, but this is Ireland. And there was a couple of nuns up in the sand dunes eating their sandwiches. Anyway, I followed her in with my jocks on, and she was teasing me about that. Anyway, we had a great few days. And everywhere we went, she was so charming. I thought, this is the one. And then we went out to the Skellig Islands. Now, it's a special place. One of the islands has these beehive huts on top, built by monks in the 6th century. But there's these real steep steps up, and there's no handrails or anything. And the boatman said, we've only got like 3/4 of an hour because the weather's about to change. So we start up, and I'm leading the way, and she's sort of closing her eyes, and halfway up, she completely freezes. She says, I can't do heights. I get vertigo. And I said, well, what did you say? And we were stuck. And the clouds were coming in, and oh, fuck. And I couldn't get her to move. Eventually, she started to edge her way down on her bum, one step at a time. But there were hundreds of them, and I was worried because by now, everyone else was back in the boat, and the rain had come on. Well, it took us, I don't know, about 25 minutes. And they're all back in the boat, effing and blinding, and she's all upset and in tears. And it's all your fault, it's all your fault. And she wouldn't let it go. You shouldn't have made me. Anyway, we drive back at the little port and we went into a pub and dried off. And then things started to jolly up a bit. You know, musicians came in, but there was still a kind of an edge. And she was sort of flirting with the men at the bar, and I'm starting to feel uncomfortable. And then the next thing, will you go and get my instrument? And I said, I'm not going to leave you here with these fellas, you come with me. And the lad said, no, we'll look after you. And then you go, she says. So I ran, and I brought the thing back, and well, they're getting real cozy with her now, and they're pouring her whiskies, and fuck, this isn't good. And then she starts to sing, and then she's about to do her twirl, and I said, for fuck's sake, you're not doing your spinning here. And she's, well, you've changed. And then the next thing, some old fella looked at her funny, and she exploded. And the whole atmosphere became really dodgy. And the barman said, get her out of there, quick. So I took her outside, and she puked into the bushes. And I thinking, oh, God, this is hard work. And then the next day, she was due to go home, and I'm thinking, like, she's expecting me to. But I couldn't bring myself to take it any further. So she got on the plane. She didn't push me. She didn't ask me. She just flew off. And it didn't bother me that she got drunk, but there was a kind of madness there. And I freaked. And it kind of shocked me because I always thought of myself as a free spirit. That was when I was in my 20s. A few years later, I married Maggie.
Right, Mother. Night dress. If there's a crease in it, we'll never hear the end of it. Terry listens to the baby monitor. It's gone very quiet up there. I'm not going to check. I'm not. If she's dead, she's dead. The past 3 hours I've been up those stairs 20 times if I've been up once. She's 89. I can't stand this much longer. If I didn't have her, I could get away. I could sell my house. Somehow John and I never got round to selling it. Zoe's life had been there. Then he took off, John. He couldn't be there anymore. It split us up, but it's all I've known for 30 years. I could get somewhere by the sea. Somewhere like Llandudno. Oh, that'd be nice. Now, I miss all my friends here. But they could always come and visit. And if I wanted to earn a bit of money, I could do Airbnb. I wouldn't want to run a normal B&B, but one person, a meal in the evening, breakfast at least. And then I could not do it if I didn't want to do it, and I could get away when I wanted. Oh God, I miss Liverpool. We took Zoe to the opening of the Tate. Oh, she loved it. I miss the culture. Last year, the museum had Tutankhamun. Oh, I was mad for that stuff when I was about 14. For months, I thought, that's what I'm going to be, an archaeologist. I fancy being in the desert with a big hat and camels and a little hammer, tapping away and breaking through into treasure, and you'd see all this gold and lapis lazuli glinting in the dark. I had a bit of lapis lazuli. I gave you, didn't I, Zoe? And a box to put it in, and a pebble with a hole in it that you and your dad found on the beach together. They're still in your treasure box. And every day, every moment of every day. Right, Mother, duvet cover.
Harvey's got this hit list of events he's working on. He's cutting and pasting stuff together, trying to craft a history. And the particular tipping point of this story is the Wapping Fortress, when Rupert Murdoch shut down the Times, the Sun and the News of the World and moved them out there to get rid of the print unions and also to hire journalists on more compromised terms. A brilliantly orchestrated power grab. Murdoch is a bogeyman for whom Harvey has venomous loathing. The growth of his empire has become an obsession, along with the malign influence that he's exerted on journalists and politicians of all stripes. Through a combination of good luck and cosmic ambition, Murdoch pulled it off, in cahoots with Thatcher, who'd set up all the anti-union legislation beforehand, and then the police helpfully agreed to be used as an instrument of corporate coercion. And I've got to say, the fucking print unions helped too, because they've been up to all sorts of jiggery-pokery beforehand. Nobody was in love with them. That fucking boss planned it like a military campaign. He said, tonight, we're going to print the Times in Wapping. What? Where? When? Who knew? So, that's one episode that Harvey's really fleshing out. Another rupture in democracy occurs with the Iraq War, where ushered in by New Labour's, and particularly Blair's, infatuation with money and power, which did for him as an honest politician, and also destroyed for an entire generation the potential for good politics on the left. Harvey learned revolutionary and anarchist politics at Sussex University in the late 60s, when it was all kicking off on campus. He led a very vigorous, politicised life at that time. He was in Paris during Les Événements. His book is an attempt to wake everybody up.
What Bill likes to do when he can't sleep is to take a walk by the sea. Always been a late bird. Think about the early hours, everything quiet. The dislocation in his life and the drinking after work is causing him to find sleep very elusive. He gets to bed about 2-ish, nods off, and then has dreams that keep rolling and rolling, so much so that he wants to shout, "Stop!" And he comes out of these dreams hot and sweaty, full of remorse, anger, exhausted. When he has a ragged night, with his mind racing, he walks down to the beach. Sometimes helps him sleep later. There's something magical about living by the sea and the dark sky and looking out at ship's lights. The distance, the sheer majesty of it all, with the constellations changing by the seasons. My favourite is Orion, 2,000 light years away. I tried learning the names of individual stars. I think it's 7 stars in Orion. Yep, Betelgeuse, Bellatrix, Rigel, Saiph, Alnilam, Mintaka, Alnitak. He writes their names in the sand because it seems to clear his brain. It also reinforces details which he's finding very difficult to remember when he's working. It's not desperately worrying, but it does cause him some... He finds that learning the names of stars, learning new poems, helps to keep his brain agile. Betelgeuse, Bellatrix, Rigel, Saiph, Alnilam, Mintaka, Alnitak. It's kind of a nice feeling to think that when I come here tomorrow, they'll all be gone. Washed away by the tide. Betelgeuse, Bellatrix, Rigel.
It's at times like this that Hugo regrets his eldest boy, Charlie's, decision to settle in the States. He's got a good job, right enough, in Silicon Valley, but he's impossible to get hold of. Every time I ring him, I get that dreadful evangelical wife of his. That's no point in ringing Jack. He'd be sympathetic, all right, but he'd end up tapping me for a few €100. He's a bit of a disappointment, I have to say. I thought he would have settled into something steady by now, but his latest scheme, growing a beard and plaiting his hair to try and get work as an extra on the Vikings, well, it doesn't sound very hopeful. He's too fond of the pubs. That's his problem. I wonder where he gets that from.
Terry's been dreaming about Zoe's first day at school. She had a raspberry-coloured frock and a little badge and a bag that was too big for her. You look beautiful. But you wanted to wear your pink wig, didn't you? I said, no, I don't think you can wear that to school. And your granddad was there that morning. He took millions of photographs. And the three of us waved goodbye to John and off we went to school. And you went through the gate and this little boy, Harry his name was, took your hand and he went running off to the swings. And my dad stood behind me with his hands on my shoulders and I felt like I was going to school for the first time. The teachers knew about her hair.
I was at my lovely all-girls school. I was 18 and I had a group of friends there who were really loyal. I didn't have a particular best friend, but we all sort of hung around together. We were very into sports and we were all in the choir. And on this particular night, I'd come home from school and I was having a little relax in my bedroom, probably listening to Joni Mitchell or James Taylor, or possibly even writing a little bit of poetry and thinking I was very much like Leonard Cohen. Anyway, the telephone rang and my mother trolled upstairs and said, Helen, it's for you, it's Alison. So down I went and Alison said, Helen, I'm your best friend. I just want to warn you. Oh, some sort of test tomorrow, I thought. And then she said, don't come into school. Why ever not? Because you'll be sent to Coventry. Well, why? What have I done? Sure, well, I'm surprised that you don't know. That party we went to last Saturday, Caroline saw you in the car with Alistair and you were kissing him. And you know very well that Sarah is very keen on Alistair. And as we're a kind of sisterhood, we count that as betrayal. So don't come into school tomorrow because nobody will speak to you. Oh, I felt this white, hot panic rise up in me and I said, oh, well, Alison, I think you've got the wrong end of the stick here. I think what was actually happening was that I was in the car with Alistair, but I was kind of comforting him because he was confiding in me some very deep thoughts. He thought that he might be gay, and I had my arm around him and I was saying, oh, don't worry, your parents will be fine about it. So that's what was happening in the car, and very much not what you think. Oh, I'd never do that to Sarah. And she said, is that true? Is that really true? I said, yes. I take my friendships very seriously, and it is really, really true. She said, oh, well, in that case, I'll spread it around, what you said. But I still think you shouldn't come into school tomorrow because I might not be able to reach everybody. I said, no, I'm coming in. She said, well, you're bloody brave. I said, yes, I am. I'm bloody brave. I'm going to face it out. So I went home that night and it was very difficult to sleep and my head was just churning on all the things that could happen to me the next day. And I did go into school the next day and, oh my God, well, it was quite clear that nobody had heard. bloody bitch, you bloody treacherous bitch. So I went home, sort of throbbing a little and feeling really quite upset. And then I thought to myself, well, I don't think you told the whole truth there, did you, Helen? I mean, you were in the car with Alistair, and he was confiding in you he might be gay, but in fact, your need to kiss him greatly outweighed your need to comfort him. I felt very disappointed in myself. I thought, boy, you better be a bit more careful from now onwards. And anyway, I find I have been a little bit more cautious. Oh, I don't know. Did I behave badly? I do think I was bloody brave.
I taught for 35 years. I never went to the private sector, ever. I taught in deprived areas of London, and though I say so myself, I was pretty successful, popular with the pupils, partly, I'd say, because they sensed my ambivalence about authority. I wanted to educate the kids with a desire to celebrate literature and the weird avenues of history that have led us to where we are. But in my last school, a new head took over, a man called Guilfoyle, a real zealot for prosecuting government policy. And once that tosser, Michael Gove, came in, things took a deep fucking dive. And Guilfoyle was a sort of yes man, right there hitting the figures, ticking the boxes, on the kids' case to give the correct answers, and a lot of nonsense about uniforms and male teachers wearing ties, and no understanding about where these kids came from. And nothing about stimulating a spirit of inquiry in them. After a couple of terms of snooping around my classes, he hauled me in and said, "Cartwright," Cartwright, not Harvey, as though I was some insubordinate pupil. "I'm not very happy. You've been allowing too much flexibility around the syllabus." Well, I had been a bit radical, giving the kids a feeling for a Marxist interrogation of history, which was not to his liking at all. He wanted 1066 and all that, dates, battles, kings. So I said to him, "Hang on there, Mr. Guilfoyle, what about my results?" He's very keen on results, Mr. Guilfoyle. "May I say that 8 of my pupils got into the Russell group, and another 5 who had never read a book in their lives, I actually got reading and writing about their reading?" "Yes, that might be the case," he said, "but you haven't been teaching what you're supposed to be teaching." "But they got into university." "That's beside the point. There are lesson plans and you will follow them." No sense that I might have had something of value to give with 3 decades of teaching alienated kids. He put me in a position where I had to resign. Retire, actually. With nothing to engage their imaginations, those kids are going to get seriously disaffected. That's bread and circuses, isn't it? You keep them ignorant and then you get on with your money-making operation. Fuck the planet. But we let it happen, don't we? We've just allowed an ultra-right-wing takeover. He has a feeling that if people like him had participated more effectively, it could have been different. Well, it's time to get the guns out. The sad truth we're going to have to learn from history again is that you can't get anything done without spilling blood.
2 roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveller. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. Sophie particularly loved Robert Frost, such an amazing coincidence. He was her favourite poet. She used to quote reams of his stuff, and I'd just listen. She had a lovely, soft voice. It's very difficult to know when you actually start to have feelings for somebody. By feelings, I mean it's more than just hanging out. We tended to spend more time together after work, and sometimes I'd get in early and we'd maybe walk down the embankment. There's a French word for it. Frisson. A certain something that goes up the back of your neck when you look at somebody and you wonder, is this reciprocated? Is this mutual? And this one night I was walking into the tube to catch a last train home to Lewisham, and we found ourselves holding hands. I mean, it wasn't me grabbing her hand, it wasn't her grabbing my hand. Suddenly we realised we were walking along, holding hands, which was quite a powerful moment, really. And I didn't go home that night. I didn't go home that night because Sophie said, Bill, come back with me. Took my breath away, really, and I didn't hesitate. I said yes, straight away. I thought, I can tell Mandy there were problems on the night shift and I had to stay over, because that does happen sometimes. So I went back, and it was lovely, really lovely. I mean, now people say, oh, the sex was great. But it wasn't just sex. It's quite special, really. Very tender, and she stroked my hair in a particular way which was so delightful and comforting. And I felt very, sounds stupid really if I'm a man, I felt very safe.
I used to go on holiday with Fran. She's my best friend, my mainstay. She was there for me when Zoe died. She was. We met teaching little ones at primary school. Then she trained to work with autistic children. I don't know how she does it, I couldn't. I call her the Blessed Fran. I loved working with kids. But when Zoe died, I couldn't go back to it. I did try. But seeing all those little ones growing up, I began to hate them. And one day I just couldn't go in. I stood there shaking. Everyone was very nice. They said, you've come back too soon. And John was great. He said, take some time out. And Fran said, oh, come on. Let's go away for the weekend. And we did. We went to Barcelona. We were only there for 3 nights, and on the second night we were having this meal somewhere off the Ramblers, and we were walking back, and I was looking at this. It was like this a rotisserie, 20 chickens on a spit, and these amazing Spanish tiles, and I got sort of mesmerised. And suddenly this bloke grabbed my bag and ripped it off me. Oh, I ran after him, shouting something ridiculous like, stop, thief, but he was like the wind. It was 5 o'clock in the morning, and I thought, maybe he dumped the bag. Maybe he kept the money and the passport and he dumped the bag. So I looked in bins and in doorways and down funny passages, but no, there was nothing. The bin men were already at work. And I still think about that bag because tucked away in one of those secret zipped pockets in a tiny plastic wallet was a lock of Zoe's hair. And the bastard took it.
And Sophie. They kept on seeing each other, which was interesting. She was witty, very witty, made me laugh a lot. And she was very warm towards me, very warm. Then I was approached by this woman in a bar, a friend of Sophie's mother, come to find out what was going on. Her mother has been suspecting things and was saying that Sophie was far too young, far too young. And the combination of pressure of work, split from Mandy, drinking too much, long hours, and things got very tense in the kitchen with Sophie and me, and that doesn't go unnoticed. Word got round that Sophie was unhappy. Her standard of work was slipping, and I was called in, and they said, Bill, we're very concerned. There's too much tension, friction in the kitchen, and there are rumours about you and Sophie. And it just came out. I'm not an aggressive person usually, but something just snapped, and I said, it's none of your fucking business. Well, that wasn't very wise. He said, what did you say? I said, you heard what I said, none of your fucking business. So, he says, you're out. And they gave me my notice. And 5 years of building my reputation down the tubes. So, no job, reputation tarnished, and that's Sophie. So he's able to stay on a friend's sofa for a while and then scrabbling around for the odd kitchen jobs again this late in his career. Time goes on, a few short-lived relationships, and then a friend called Maurice, who's just taken on a restaurant in Cornwall called The Lugger, gets in touch. There's work for you here, Bill, if you want it. And good news. There's a small flat above the restaurant. Sounds brilliant. So, he gets the National Express coach down. Good job at last. And he brings his expertise with him. He's been the chef here for quite a few years.
My dad had always been a hero figure for me. Sports journalist working for the Racing Post in Dublin when I was born. I have a photograph of him. He's a smartly dressed guy. It was a bit of a gambler, a bit of a womanizer, I believe. A man for the big show, the big effect. Early on in their relationship, he would take my mother over for the derby. But whenever there were bills to be paid, he never seemed to be around. So from my mother's perspective, he wasn't such a hero. But for me, he was a romantic figure. And they separated when I was 6. Then he took off. He emigrated to Argentina. Became the racing correspondent for the Buenos Aires Herald, which made him even more romantic. My mum then got involved with my stepdad, who was a much more sober character, a farmer from County Limerick. So we all moved down here. But I always wanted to know what happened to him. And years later, I had an opportunity to go to Argentina, working with students. So I headed out, armed with my photograph and a letter that my mother had given me from a woman called Chichi Alvarez, saying, sorry to inform you that Mr. Hugh Samuel Doyle died on such and such a date and that his ashes were scattered at the Jockey Club in Cordoba. And it had a Buenos Aires address. So, on my first day off, I went to the offices of the Buenos Aires Herald, and I found a couple of articles by Sammy Doyle. Well, wasn't much, to be honest, but I was kind of buoyed up by that. And a week passed, and I thought, I'll go and see if I can find this address, Chichi's address. And it was in a smart area of Buenos Aires, and this handsome young guy opened the door, and I explained who I was, and, oh yes, he said, Chichi was my aunt. She died a few years ago, but she had a companion at one time, an Irish guy, and the person who would know about that was our old housekeeper, Rosa. But she's down at our holiday home in Cordoba with my sister Marina. So, a week passed, and I took the 9-hour bus ride down to Cordoba. And Marina picked me up, and she pointed out the Jockey Club as we drove up the drive of this old house. And it was very impressive, a kind of faded grandeur. And she knew of my dad. She said, oh yes, apparently they were great friends for a time. And then she called Rosa, who was an old lady in her 80s, and she was looking at me very suspiciously. And Marina, translated, said, this is Mr. Doyle, Chichi's companion's son. And Rosa didn't seem to know that he had a son. But doesn't surprise me, she said. And she asked me if I had a family, and I said, oh yes, I have a wife and 2 little boys. And she seemed to like that idea. And then I showed her the photograph, and she said, oh yes, he had been a good friend of Chichi's for a number of years. They spent their summers in this house. And she also said, he spent a lot of time between San Juan and Mendoza. And Marina explained that these were wine-growing areas at the foothills of the Andes. Oh, really? I said, what? They had a place there too? No, said Rosa. It's an expression for being drunk. Yes, down at the jockey club mostly. He died in this house, well, in the gate lodge. So, it appears that they'd had a falling out. Chichi and Sammy, and she went back to Buenos Aires. The house was boarded up, and he stayed on in the gate lodge. And then she brought out a photograph album, and there was one of him sitting back in a chair, and he had dark glasses on. And Chichi was beside him, and he was kind of wrapped up, and I noticed that he had a stick. Ah, yes, she said. He lost his sight, you see. So, apparently he was drunk most of the time, blind, and living alone when he died. She said to me, the old lady, before I left, she said, stay with your family. Stay with your family. You should stay with your family.
Harvey is tackling some actual writing, but he's kind of freestyling. Friday, 10th of January 1986. You pass the period street lighting in St James's Park. Your Jag XJ6, its engine purring like a cat in front of the fire, pulls up outside the rear entrance of number 10 Downing Street. A flunky opens the door deferentially, and you encounter the PM, flushed and excited, from another meeting where she has thrillingly demolished yet more provisions of the welfare state. Rupert, she exclaims, urgently, you play your cards coolly, because you want something more than to crease her twin set and rattle her pearls in a deep clinch. You need the police on side to crush those stinking, striking print workers. Prime Minister, you begin exaggerating your Aussie twang. My dear, we have a few items of business to discuss. Sunday, 26th of January 1986. Progressing at royal speed, 7 3/8 miles per hour, your sedate progress to the Wapping plant is greeted by ranks of mounted police practically performing a Viennese dressage manoeuvre as they part to let your gleaming Daimler through. Their chief mounted officer cannot restrain himself from offering you a salute. You have prized your way into the troubled heart of the British establishment.
Oh. Sleeplessness is defining Helen. She used to pride herself on looking so much younger than her years. Now she doesn't think that at all. Look at you, utterly washed out and big bags under your eyes, and in my job it is so important to remain attractive and interesting to people. Oh, it's supposed to be coming up to retirement. Oh, it's not definite, it's just a possibility. Helen, you mustn't lose your grip. Helen has no idea why she can't sleep. The menopause, maybe that's when it began, the hot flushes and all those nights having to get up for a pee, and then all this empty time in which to brood over things. There's no one really to talk to. Helen hasn't had time for other people. She's been so concerned with all the interests of the young that she works for, and her friends are mostly her work colleagues. She's lost contact with all her friends from her lovely schools. Working for the Windsor Trust is a dream job, really. It's got glamour, and as well as all the good things that it does, it fills me up. It simply fills me up. Good God, I've been there since my 40s. Much of my job is about persuading people to part with their money, and I have to say that is a talent that I do have, being persuasive. Not bullying, of course, but just encouraging people to sponsor training schemes and opportunities for young people. Seeing them develop and grow, it truly does fill me up. Thought of retirement. Well, I honestly don't trust my colleagues. I'm sure they are all eyeing up my place when I leave, and they're just not competent enough. And young Hamid's case, it is so complex. I really can't risk leaving him in their hands. It is absolutely vital that I am there to keep him up and running. Am I making a special case out of him, I wonder? I'm not supposed to, I know, but the young lad has really come to rely on me. I can't let him down. The other day he called me mother. I really ought to be very careful that he doesn't find my address. Every morning Helen wakes up feeling sluggish. Something she desperately tries to hide from all her colleagues. So hard to get to work on time. So exhausted. It's so hard to solve problems, both physically and mentally. Helen dreads the loss of her looks, the loss of identity, the loss of purpose. And her anxiety about what doesn't lie ahead is all-encompassing. Bed has become an endless waking nightmare, and she dreads the dinner party tomorrow.
Fuck it, where's that letter gone?
Harvey knows somebody in publishing. He needs to get published. So he's trying to generate some interest. Dear James Kavanagh, you may remember meeting some time ago at the Labour conference where I made a presentation to a fringe group. It starts, he thinks, quite well, about how the Labour movement has been subsumed by the ideology of neoliberalism. He's rather pleased with that phrase. At the time you expressed an interest in my ideas, not pushing too much, which have now matured and been formulated into a book entitled The Three Falls of Britain: Wapping, Iraq and New Labour, and the recent right-wing Tory coup. Harvey feels a bit uncomfortable writing this letter. It doesn't sit well with how he sees himself, and yet he thinks it's not possible to get a book published in this country unless it's aimed at the avaricious heart of capitalist publishing. I enclose 2 chapters for your consideration.
A few nights ago,
Bill had been walking along the beach with a friend. Well, she'd become quite a close companion, really. A French girl, well, a woman, Geneviève. She's a sous chef at another restaurant, and she's studying to be a poissonnière. She's been in the UK, I think she said, about 10 years. And she's going back soon. She thinks it's really quite sad. She's told him she's had enough of Brexit and she doesn't like the mood of the country anymore. Her brothers opened a restaurant in Alès, which is down in the Gard. Bill and Geneviève have grown quite close. They're both divorced. She's in her 40s, so there's quite an age difference. So it's not in any way a romantic relationship, it's companionship, really. Bill knows he's going to miss her when she goes. Because it's not a sexual relationship, but we're kind of kindred spirits. She has a great smile and a wonderful laugh. She smokes and she's got this Gauloise laugh and she's lovely. If I won the lottery, I'd fuck off. I'd leave the UK, go down to France or Italy. Probably France. Buy a little place near Alès. Because of this friend. Not a girlfriend. Close friend. She's lovely.
Sally Jane Hughes. So, Sal was like my best friend at school. Real life wire. Fantastic. We worked hard, we got good marks. We were ambitious to do something with our lives, get out of Merseyside and see the world. We joined the Geographical Society because they did trips and it ain't getting out. It was never just our school, you'd end up on a coach with about 40 other kids. There was this one trip to see the glacial valleys of Snowdonia. And come the day, there we were, the only ones from our school. And Mr. Pritchard was taking names. Snowdonia, here we come. 2 hours later, we're at this place, Penny Pass. And Mr. Pritchard walks us from the hotel where they parked the coach up the pig track. And we get to the top of Snowdon and the view is fantastic. And Mr. Pritchard says we'll be stopping here for an hour and then we'll return the way we came. It's getting cold, a bit rainy, so we go into the cafe and we think, oh, better go to the ladies now before we go back. And honest to God, we weren't there very long, we weren't. But when we came out, there was no one from our group to be seen. Oh, we couldn't believe it. We ran out of the cafe, we ran back into the cafe. We sounded like mad people. Has anyone seen 40 people going down the mountain? Excuse me, which way's the pig track? We couldn't find the pig track. So we decided to follow the railway track down to the bottom and get onto the coach at Penny Pass. Oh, we followed this blessed track. It took ages. But I don't know. The spirit of adventure took us over and we were laughing the whole time. Oh, what? I've no idea. Eventually, we got to the bottom of Penny Pass Hotel and, oh, the coach had gone. The coach had gone. I mean, we could not believe it. Honestly, we hadn't been in the coach, in the ladies very long. Surely somebody must have noticed. Oh, we needed a phone. No mobiles then, of course. So we went into the hotel and I said, good evening. It was tea time. And I explained what had happened. And this woman, oh, she was what my mother would have called blousy. A lot of hair, earrings. Oh, I don't know, blousy. And she said, well, young ladies, there's the phone. Thank God, it was my dad who answered. And I said, Daddy, I'm so sorry. And I explained the whole situation. And he said, right, put the lady back on. So they had a chat, and eventually she said, right, I'll put her back. And then he said, right, this is what's going to happen. You're going to stay there overnight, and in the morning, I will pick you up as near as 9 o'clock, and that lady's going to make sure you're all right. By this time, we've gone from one scenario to this whole other adventure. Staying by ourselves in a hotel. Oh, we were so full of ourselves, starring in our own movie. And I think this is what cemented our friendship. Something so beyond our lives, like we'd escaped through the looking glass. And in the morning, sure enough, there was my dad. From then on, we had grand times. She was a grand pal. And after school, I went on to teacher training, and she went off to uni in Birmingham. But over the years, you just sort of lose touch. And then this morning, out of the blue, she gave me a ring, and we met up. And it was like the years rolled away, and we were laughing at all the things we'd done. And she said she got divorced, and her daughter had anorexia. She'd been through quite a lot for a while there. But it's my time now, she said. I'd taken early retirement, and I bought myself a camper van. She'd been down through France and Italy and all over the place, and I thought, oh, I couldn't do that on my own. And then she said, why don't we go to the States together? Do Route 66? So I had to tell her about my mother. And then she was gone. And I felt so nostalgic for the girl I'd been. That girl with all that adventure in her, when everything was possible. And as Sal drove away, I wanted to call out, come back, come back. Take me with you.
Before I was at my lovely all-girls school, I was at a lovely convent run by Spanish Carmelite nuns. They were absolute darlings. And I was in a dark corridor one afternoon, and I suddenly felt this really cold chill, and in front of me, up the stairs, came a nun that I had never seen before, and she had her arms out in front of her, a little bit like this, and she was smiling at me. And then she just went on her way and disappeared. Through the wall, it seems. Gosh, what was that? So later I asked lovely Sister Montserrat, I said, Sister, have we got any nuns visiting us? She said, no, why would you say that? I thought, oh, goodness, I've seen a ghost. And I wasn't frightened at all. I suppose I found it rather sexy. I felt sort of special in some way. As if I had special powers.
The bull. Ah, for fuck's sake. I was walking up to the pub, and there's a farmer in there, Fitzgerald, and for the last fucking 3 weeks he's been going on and on about his bull. He had a prize Hereford, and he used to make a lot of money from it, selling its semen. But the fucking bull got ill and had to be sold off. Just from the meat, but Jesus Christ, every time you go to the pub, there's your man, and what was he going to do, and how was he going to get a replacement, and all the rest of it. Anyway, I was walking up to the pub, and the bull was back in the field. So I said, Fitzgerald, what happened, man? Your bull's back. That's great, isn't it? And he said, what the fuck are you talking about? Don't be winding me up, Doyle. And I said, no, I'm not winding you up, it's in the field. Would you ever fuck off, he says. That's out of order, that is. I'm not winding you up. Well, you're fucking drunk then. I said, I'm not drunk. I've only just arrived. I saw your fucking bull. Anyway, he's in a right old huff. He didn't talk to me. And I'm thinking, Jesus, I don't know what's going on here. So on my way home, I made a point of stopping at the gate and looking, and there was no sign of the bull. So I went right into the field and I looked, and there was no fucking bull in there. So over the next few days, I'm up there and I'm fucking losing my mind.
They fucking changed the door code. They changed the door code. What's that supposed to mean? I'm out, that's what it means. Your whole life just drifting with the tide. Waste of time, waste of space. Who needs you? The Savoy, of course. Their crab bisque. And maybe the poached lobster tails with the cauliflower and butter sauce. Yes, Maurice, see what you make of that. I can go down the fish market first thing and cook it up here and bring it in mid-morning. I'm good at seafood. I am good at seafood. I just need to find my files. Where the fuck are my recipes? Where the fuck are you? Where? He wakes in a panic. Yesterday, Maurice said, Bill, can I have a word? I thought, what's that supposed to mean? Because have all this knowledge in your head of ingredients, measurements, temperatures, and there's this mental kind of stodginess and having to go back to my files for certain recipes when they've always been in here for years. Billy says I have to have a talk with you because I'm having complaints. About what? About the food, the dishes. Not just on one occasion, but several. Several. And I start to feel myself getting angry. I say, oh, that's news to me. It's been happening a lot, he says. A lot, I said. He said, just this week, 3 dishes were sent back overcooked. Only the other day, a woman from some important trust complained very loudly, and that was about the last straw. Anyway, the long and the short of it, Bill, maybe it's time we let you go. Let me go. I've taught him everything he knows about haute cuisine. I've raised the reputation of the fucking lugger, and he knows that. He knows that. Then he says, we've got a new guy coming in to restructure the menu. Young, with fresh ideas, change the image, more of a fusion vegan feel. I said, I can do fucking fusion, you know I can. Do I, he says. Sorry, but this is the way it's got to be. I said, it's not just my job, Maurice, it's where I live. All my fucking stuff. He said, our mind's made up. It's been terrific, thank you very much, but I'm giving you 1 month's notice. And your redundancy, of course, should add up after all these years. It's like history repeating itself. Steins won't employ me. It's a small world. Cornwall's small. Word will get round. Bill will use what's very good. Very good. But that was years ago. So it's shot for me here. I'll have to go back to... where? London? A big place. Mandy won't talk to me. Sophie, after all this time. Genevieve. Oh, I can't think of anyone else. Hope for the best, really. Hope for the best.
I was in the kitchen earlier today, and I suddenly felt this chill, and well, it reminded me, and I just need to do something. I just need to go down to the kitchen again. Joyce, feel you. You're here, aren't you? I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so very, very sorry. I should have made more of an effort to make sure you were all right. I've been thinking about it so much, and my sleeplessness, I'm sure it's got something to do with this. I'm going to sit here, Joyce dear, and be quiet for a minute and see if you have heard me, because I'm really quite sensitive to atmospheres. Joyce, I do hope you can forgive me, because if you can't, I don't think I'm ever going to go to sleep again. I mean, I don't know any of your relatives, so I can't ask forgiveness of them, and there's no one to say, oh, don't worry, at least she didn't have to go into hospital. I should have done something the moment that I saw those milk bottles still on the doorstep, and I was late for work, and I had a meeting, and I thought, oh, I must get on, and I can't forgive myself. So Joyce, if you can hear me, please say it's all right. I've been thinking about you down here on your own in the basement, and I've been thinking, oh, well, it serves you right, Ellen, you stupid, selfish, ugly old cow, because exactly the same thing is going to happen to you. So please forgive me, please tell me I can move on. Please tell me I'm not a bad person. I don't want to be a good person. But I did want you to die for my kitchen. For my bloody fucking kitchen.
Harvey goes back to packing. A moth flies out of the sweater. Shit! Fuck! 2 holes, bang centre, middle of the chest. Bastards! Fuck! I know my suit. My one and only. Never wear it, but you little fucker. No. A fucking triplet of neat little holes just below the crotch. Beautiful piece of moth work. Shit. I can't go searching for my daughter now. Don't even have a suit. Oh, there's a place in Crouch End that does invisible mending. Costs a fortune. You can still see, oh, there was a hole there, kind of thing. Patched clothes. You become part of the detritus of society. I'm still working, for fuck's sake. I've still got a major project I'm trying to complete here. Oh, fuck it. Oh, fuck it. Fuck Murdoch. Fuck Wapping. Fuck Blair. Fuck fucking Trump. Fuck Boris. Fuck Gove. Fuck the lot of you. It's symptomatic of something really bad that happens to people when they've retired. They shrink. They smell. My whole living space has been invaded by these undercover agents of decay. Rot and decrepitude creeps in. It eats you from inside.
I've had it. I've got to do this room. She'll be on my back if I leave her. Oh, come on, Terry. You can do it. And I've got like this 1,000-yard stair. The television cabinet my dad made. The Virgin Mary on top of it. The little night light. The Indian bell. on, Teresa, girl, come on. You can do it. And I'm putting the pledge spray on the duster and lifting the Virgin Mary and the doily and the nightlight. And I'm remembering my mother lit this when she was up and about. So, light it now, why don't you? So, I'm getting the matches and I'm lighting the nightlight. Where are you, Mary? I need a miracle here. Where are you? No bloody miracles, is there? Oh, Daddy, where are you? God, this has got to stop. You're mad. I can't move. I can't move. All I could think about it was about 14 months after Zoe died. And I was in this department store, George Henry Lee's, quite posh really. And I'd been to Marks and bought a new bra. And I was wandering around, lost. And I thought, I'm going to die. And I didn't know what I was doing there or who I was. And I felt like I was disappearing. Then I realised there was in front of this DIY display, Black & Decker or something. And I dropped my bag. And this woman, she said, "Are you all right, love?" And I couldn't look. I couldn't speak. I thought if I keep very still, no one will know that I'm here. Then I was in the manager's office and she was asking my name and saying, "You'll be all right, you'll be all right." The next thing there was this policewoman, ever so young, saying her name was Lucy. And did I mind if she looked in my handbag? I still had an address book in those days. And the next thing I knew, my dad was there. And he said, "Hello, Poppet." And he put his arm around me. And I thought, I might be able to come back. I might just be able to come back. And he got me home. And I started shaking. And suddenly I was weeping. And I wept and wept and wept. And he laid me down on the sofa and he covered me up with a rug. And he said, "You try and sleep now. I'll sit in the chair. And when you wake up, we'll make a nice cup of tea and you'll be fine." Oh, God. I'm very near that now, but there's no dad now. There's no dad to lie me on the sofa and make me a cup of tea. And then I look in the mirror at the room behind me and, oh, there's the Virgin Mary and the nightlight and the Indian bell and the bookcases full of all the books he used to read to Zoe. And everywhere I look, there's my old life everywhere. I can't get away from anything. And I feel as lost as I did when Zoe died. But that was then, and this is now. I don't want to pretend anymore. I don't want to keep on having to put on a brave face and pretend everything's going to be all right. Because it isn't all right. And I don't know what to do about that. So, I'll put the Hoover away. And I'll put the duster away. And I'll put the kettle on. Because that's what you do. You have a nervous breakdown and you put the kettle on. I can't hear anything.
Hugo is taking the maps out for the fantasy Balkan road trip, pretending to plan. Who are you kidding, Doyle? I never thought I'd fall in love again, my age. Thought of life without you, Kathleen. All your things gone. No more evenings together, or cuddling up in bed, or sex, when it happens. Just having you there, night after night. You say you love me, but enough. Takes out the phone to ring her. What am I going to say? The specialist was telling me today, when he gave me my diagnosis, he said, with this condition you'll get these black spots, and he handed me a leaflet. The Charles Bonnet syndrome, it said. What the fuck? Visual hallucinations. And there it was. It said some people have these hallucinations. It's like your brain is making up stuff you can't see. So I passed that fucking field for 3 years and the bull was always in it, and now I'm passing it and there's a black spot. So I just put the bull there. I put the fucking bull back in the field. Jesus Christ. So I asked the man, and he said yes. With macular degeneration for the first 12 months. These things can happen. The bull! He picks up the phone again and dials.
Bill decides to take a walk down to the sea again, leaving his phone behind. It's a chilly dawn, perfect, clear, and there they still are, just about. Beetlejuice, Bellatrix, Rigel, Scythe, Alnilam, Mintaka, Alnitak,